Hello and welcome to the 34 Minutes of Heaven we call the D1Baseball Podcast. I am your host, Michael Patrick Rooney III. Want to say thank you to our good friends at Academy Sports and Outdoors. People, you got to get yourself ready for a new season of fishing fun with Academy Sports and Outdoors. The fishing season is upon us. Reel in, see what I did there? Reel in the best gear at low prices every day.
That was pretty
Plus
good.
Academy, that's right. Plus Academy offers easy ways to shop and save time, like free 1 hour in-store or curbside pickup on the academy.com orders. So again, if you listen to the ACC Etc. podcast, Danny Graves, Miami Hall of Famer, Cincinnati Reds Hall of Famer, cannot stop raving about the fishing gear at Academy Sports and Outdoors. So now is the time. We are thrilled to be partnered with those guys this year, as I am thrilled on a Thursday night before weekend 3 to be partnered with the great Kendall J. Rogers. Kendall, I'm coming to you live from Sin City, Las Vegas, Nevada, Las Vegas Ballpark, where we're getting ready for the Las Vegas Classic put on by Peak Events. Awesome. You are in the Rogers compound, either in Spring, Texas, Klein, Texas, or Spring, Klein, Texas. We want to keep it nebulous. We don't want you to be identified.
Correct. That would help. I have heard that Professor Kyle Peterson will be heading to Sin City on Saturday, so watch out for that one.
That's right. Yeah. The Coach Farron, speaking of coaches, pointed out that our hotel is in Vegas is right next to a law firm, so that's convenient. Like that. Just kidding.
That, law firm on one side, bail bonds on the other.
That's right. We have many goals this weekend.
Just don't lose a tooth while you're there.
That's right. That's right. Well played. Well played. One of our goals this weekend is to not have to use the services of said law firm.
You know what is really nice is looking at the weather for the Vegas tournament by Peak this weekend in Frisco. You know, last weekend was kind of nasty. This weekend, like you couldn't ask for better weather. Like mid 70s sunny in Vegas, mid 70s sunny for LSU, Nebraska, Sam Houston, and K-State up at Frisco. Whereas Round Rock was a little bit messy last week. The Peak guys got it right this weekend.
Yeah, this is we had tough weather here last year for the Las Vegas Classic, where it was warm, but it was 40-mile-an-hour winds. This weekend looks awesome, and I'm telling you, Kendall, this ballpark, this AAA park in Vegas, is just gorgeous. Like the sight lines, I'm looking out at the Strip. It's a gorgeous park. It's a really kind of unique and fun park. So
interesting. Okay.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah,
I got a few Texas friends of mine that are going out there for that tournament, and hopefully they stay out of trouble. I don't have a lot of faith in that, but hopefully they do.
That's right. That's right. You have to really get after it to get in trouble in Vegas. They have a high tolerance.
Looking at you on left field.
That's right. Kendall, here's what the title of tonight's podcast is, and this is a live stream. It's a 5-spot and some rivalries. So we have 5 really prominent tournaments. I'm gonna lead us off with a tournament that's not in my 5 spot, and this is just me being sentimental. But the Keith LeClair Classic is this weekend. Yeah. It's always really cool. I always think about Coach LeClair when I see this. What a incredible person he was. Think about the people that he coached that are in coaching, like Nick Schnabel and Eric Bakich and Cliff Godwin, and like his East Carolina program. Randy Mazey cut his teeth there. There's so many people, prominent people in our sport. This weekend, it's Virginia Tech, Indiana State, East Carolina, and Kent State. So 4 really good programs. But I think when I think about that tournament, it's really more about Keith LeClair and, what ECU baseball has become.
Yeah, there's no doubt. It's as they say, if 15, 20, 25 years later, people are still talking about how much of an impact he made and how great you were, you're probably a pretty good person and a pretty good coach. So, yeah, his impact, I mean, that tournament over the years has, I wouldn't say lost its luster, but it's not quite what it was at one point. I mean, if you remember back in the day, it was like the bell of the ball of tournaments. So, still a really intriguing field and frankly, kind of a big weekend for East Carolina. I watched it for the first time the other day against North Carolina in midweek action. Or in their final game of their series was it Monday. And, as we kind of thought, like coming into the season, not quite as much juice offensively. It's a little different, CG team, I feel like, with ECU. So it's just one of those teams I really wonder, from a non-conference standpoint, can they keep themselves out of a hole? And B, like, is this the ECU team that, early in the season that has question marks, but at the end of the year is all of a sudden a contender. Will they follow like an opposite path of typical ECU teams?
Yeah, I think what you just said resonates with me, that you won't want to play East Carolina in the American tournament. Like, that will be a very gnarly version of them, because they clearly have talent, but it's a big, and no one's immune from this. It's a big roster reset year for East Carolina. And in this era where your players can be drafted, your players can go in the portal, no one's immune. It's hard to be elite every single year.
It really is
Basically, like,
in this era.
yeah, like, in East Carolina has achieved that. What's cool about that tournament, and then we'll move on, is, hey, we could wake up in 4 months and that's 4 regional teams. Indiana State could win the Valley, and Virginia Tech, they always are in the hunt for a regional, and Kent State could win the MAC, and East Carolina could win the American. So that will be interesting. Kendall, let's start with the one you're going to. You're going to the Astros Foundation College Classic. It's basically 3 SEC teams ganging up on 2 Big 12 teams in Rice. So you've got let me give you the Big 12 teams. So you've got Arizona, Oklahoma State, and Rice, and the SEC teams won't play each other. So those 3 teams got to deal with Texas A&M, Tennessee, and Mississippi State. Like, it feels like a bunch of bullies, like, trying to take someone's lunch money. And I say that with all due respect to Arizona and Oklahoma State, who both hosted a regional last year. Like, these are good teams, but man, looking at the other side of the bracket with A&M, Tennessee, and Mississippi State looks like a handful.
Yeah, we've talked so much about whether or not Rice has made any kind of strides. Well, they get Mississippi State, Tennessee, and oh, by the way, your Sunday guy has to go against A&M on Sunday. So, yeah, we're going to find out, the improvements the Owls have made. I think the biggest thing for this weekend, Runes, when I look at these teams, is I'll kind of start with the 2 finalists from last year. Tennessee, Liam Doyle, we talked about him earlier in the week in our pod. He's off to an awesome start. Strikeout total in the mid-20s, just 1 walk on the season. I don't think any of us are really surprised that Frank Anderson once again had that magic touch with him. He just seems to have that effect on everybody. Chase Dolander, guys like that. He has that effect, and Doyle has been awesome. I was looking at his numbers and analytics and whatnot on Synergy the other night, and he's been sitting like 95, 99 with like a 75% whiff rate on that fastball. So I'm excited to see him this weekend. Obviously, Marcus Phillips is a premium arm that we had really high hopes for coming into the season, his ability to take that step forward. I mean, this is a team now, Runes, that has AJ Russell as its potential like Tuesday guy. Like, that's where we are for the Volunteers. So obviously pumped to see them. And the one thing I'll give TV credit and that staff is, if you look at, just the last 10 years when SEC teams have won the national championship, LSU the next year wasn't bad or anything, but like, there's been a decline from those teams after they won the national championship. Like, this Tennessee team doesn't look like it's in a decline. This Tennessee team looks like they're as good as last year, and they're ready to do a lot more. So, like, I have a lot of respect for Tony and his ability to have his team this laser focused this early in the season, coming off a championship. So that's impressive to me. On the flip side, we'll talk about a negative real quick. This is a big weekend for Texas A&M. I mean, you never look at one weekend, the end of February, beginning of March, and go, hey, this is like the weekend. But I do think if you're A&M and you look at the way they've kind of played offensively last weekend against Cal Poly was in every single one of those games. And no disrespect to Cal Poly, but like, go look at what UCLA did to Poly the weekend before. So going from that to A&M almost losing 2 out of 3 in that series, and then losing to Texas State 7-3, and that game wasn't even that close. I think Texas State left like 14 or 15 guys on base. A&M looked lifeless. Just bad offensive approaches, bad body language, and I was talking on a Baton Rouge show today about this. They asked me about A&M, and the thing that's really interesting about A&M is I don't know about you. Like, you tell me, like, if you were in this position as a player, but I mean, if I was an A&M player and my coach in the offseason decided to go to the University of Texas the day after my team got back from Omaha, like, I would come out the next season like a fire-breathing dragon. Instead, this looks like a team that like thought they were just going to show up and blow everybody out, and that's not happening. And so I wouldn't say pout is the right word, but it's just really bad body language. And so I think if you're A&M going into this weekend in Houston, like, you need to make a statement. Like, you need to show some of that attitude and swagger that you had last year. You need to get guys like Lavalette rolling. You need to get guys like Hayden Schott rolling. And I'll be honest with you, if this weekend you see some of the same body language and some of the same approaches, I'm starting to really be concerned about A&M if they don't look different this weekend, just from a sheer energy standpoint.
Yeah, I think it's all fair. Like I think
Yeah,
it's easy to forget that these are young kids, like they're 19 and
absolutely.
22. And I think what this is just a lot of attention, like, and
Mhm.
maybe for the SEC player, that's not that big a deal. They're used to attention, but being number one and all the hype, and I trying to picture, Kendall, let's be honest, my Notre Dame teams playing in the Midwestern Collegiate Conference wasn't quite the same level of media attention
Yeah,
as Texas A&M is experiencing. But I would
yeah,
say your point's well taken. They've, like I think there's certain types of bad news you can get in the preseason or, in this non-conference
yeah.
season. Like one is injuries. That's terrible.
Calvin
One
DeHogan is kind of
is,
good.
yeah, one is you find out you're not good enough. That's really bad. One is you just find out you weren't ready to play. And I think that's what A&M's dealing with right now is they're just not sharp, but they
Mhm.
are talented. I don't think any of us
Yeah,
question their talent. They're just not playing good.
no, that I will say that, but I will throw something positive in here for them. If you look at their starting rotation, Prager's been unhittable,
Hmm.
0.00 ERA. Miles Patton, you and I talked about him in the offseason. We weren't real sure, like in the fall, like how good he would be for them. Like he was good at Long Beach State. He wasn't great. I mean, he hasn't given up a run yet in 2 starts. So both those guys have been pretty good. And Justin Lincoln had a pretty good start last weekend. So bullpen, the offense right now, question marks, but the rotation has been really good. So I'll just be very curious to see what we get out of A&M this weekend. I think looking at the rest of the field real quick, if you look at, Mississippi State, looking forward to seeing Pico Cone this weekend. Obviously, Hunter Hines has been there for, several years and get to see him with the short porch out and left. And, Mississippi State with a chance to make a statement. And then the other two teams, Arizona and Oklahoma State, Arizona kind of looking back at their box score at Rice in midweek action, it seems like they're starting to figure things out at least a little bit more offensively. And I don't think either of us are surprised, right? I remember after I saw them at Globe Life, they didn't hit at all. And I was like, yeah, I still believe in the Summer Hills and guys like that. They're going to be fine. Mason White, they're going to be just fine. And then Oklahoma State, Oklahoma State for me is the sneaky team this weekend. I really, really like their offense. A couple
Hmm.
weekends ago at Globe Life, Colin Bruggeman was really good that weekend. Avery Ortiz is a nice looking player. Nolan Schubert is a big time power producer. Jason Jones hit one in the upper deck in left field at Globe Life. So that seems to make me think that he matches up really well at Dakin Park. It's called Dakin Park now, not Minute Maid. So I like their offense. I'll be curious to see their pitching, though. Their pitching wasn't overly impressive at Globe Life. So keep it on Oklahoma State. I could see them being sneaky this weekend and causing some headaches for these SEC teams.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like my three big questions, like I feel like I know who Tennessee and A&M are. Like I don't think I can learn any more about those two teams until we get to the SEC. But I think for Arizona and Oklahoma State, we have to remember that these are, to your point, two of the best offenses in the country. But both clubs are replacing their entire weekend rotations from last year. And I think that becomes a week-to-week experiment in the beginning. So I'll be really curious to see how Arizona and Oklahoma State deploy their offenses. And this may sound like me taking a little bit of a shot at Mississippi State. I don't mean it this way, but my question on Mississippi State is when you leave Dakin Park this weekend, do you feel like Mississippi State was the third best offense there, the fourth best offense there, or the fifth best offense there?
Yeah,
Because,
absolutely.
like Arizona and Oklahoma State, to your point, those are real offenses. And I'm not sure Mississippi State's offense is quite as good as theirs.
Yeah, absolutely. And the best measuring stick you see in the SEC is seeing all three of those teams on the same exact field, same exact
Hmm.
dimensions against the same teams. I mean,
Yep.
you can't get a better measuring stick than that. So I'm excited to see what I see from all three this weekend.
Amen. Hey, let's before we do the rest of
Sure.
the tournaments, Kendall, let's talk about Tecovas boots. If you love our game, you know that smell, the one that brings you right back. Fresh cut grass, a broken in glove made with real leather. That's exactly what you get with Tecovas boots. They're made for baseball people, whether you've been wearing boots your whole life or picking up your first pair. With over 200 steps of craftsmanship, they're built to last. They feel great right out of the box and look even better. This is the expression of the year, KR, in college baseball. Anywhere worth going is worth going in good boots. Find your pair today at Tecovas. So we are thrilled to be partnered up with Tecovas boots this year. That is so cool.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
I gotta hook up my man Monty Nelson over there. You know, he did that on-site thing with Skip Johnson Runes. I don't know if you actually saw that, but they did
No.
like an on-site thing with Oklahoma where they actually like branded their boots for
Oh my
Oklahoma
gosh.
at Tecovas.
Amazing.
So, you know, you can go to Tecova. What's really cool about their stores is you can go there and like you can get beer while you're shopping for boots and Western wear. It's kind of awesome.
Oh no, that's genius. Now you're speaking my language. They need one of those shops in Delco,
Yeah,
Pennsylvania.
well, you know, since Fitzy's not on here, I'm just going to go ahead and say that we're taking him to a Tacova. There's a Tacovas in Raleigh. Joe has reached out to me and said that he actually wants to go do an activation at Tacovas with Scott Forbes or another coach. And I'm going to make sure Fitzy's there and gets fitted for a cowboy hat and some pearl snaps, maybe some starch jeans. I don't know. We'll figure it out.
Yeah. The Aaron Fit Cowboy activation. Put it on your calendars, people. Stay tuned. Kendall, let's do the peak event tournaments. So we've
Yeah.
got the peak event tournament in Frisco, Texas. That is Sam Houston. That's LSU, Kansas State, and Nebraska. That's a heck of a field. And then here in Vegas, we've got Washington, Texas, Texas Tech, and Illinois. Why don't you handle Frisco for us, KR? What's one thing that really jumps off the page at you for Frisco?
Yeah, first of all, kudos to LSU fans. It sounds like the Saturday game at Frisco will be sold out for the most
Love it.
part, or at least close to sold out. That's impressive. I mean, I get that there's LSU alums in Dallas, but I mean, that's not an easy drive from Louisiana, or at least Southern Louisiana, to get to Dallas. I think set Dallas is 6.5, 7 hours from Baton Rouge. So that's really impressive. I think the biggest thing for me is going into the weekend. I'll focus on, well, real quick, Kansas State. I mean, they were really good for fit last weekend at Globe Life. You know, they had an awesome weekend, picked up some marquee victories, especially after being on the road the first weekend out in the Carolinas. But you know, Kansas State, keeping on Dante Lewis this weekend. If they can get a lead going in the middle innings, they could turn things over to Dante. You know, he could give anybody trouble, including a team like LSU. So Kansas State kind of riding the hot hand. You know, Sam Houston, has not gotten off to a very good start this season. You know, and that was a team that, frankly, in the fall, you know, when I looked at them on paper, I was like, man, like something looks like it's missing here. But, you know, Hunter Autry's off to a really good start for them, has a really good eye at the plate. He's a hitter to watch for the Bearcats. And then Nebraska, you know, Runes, it's kind of funny, kind of looking back. Well, not really funny for Will Bolt, but kind of looking back at opening weekend, your notes, you know, you talked a lot about Gabe Swanson. And, you know, I was looking at their numbers yesterday. Gabe Swanson's hitting 185 now.
Yeah.
So after those big hits
Streaky.
opening weekend, they have not hit very much. The good news is for the Huskers is Rob Childress' pitching staff has done a pretty good job. So you feel like the offense is eventually going to come. They've got those pieces they need offensively. They just need to get going. Maybe Nebraska is like A&M and like Virginia, to where they just need a little bit of time to get their engine going, so to speak. But this could be a statement making weekend for Nebraska if they can get that offense going. And then LSU, you know, I'll point out on two guys here. You know, Derek Curiel, the freshman, and Danny Dickinson, the Utah Valley transfer. Let's start with Danny, just because I think we, as a staff before the season, let's be really honest here. We were a little skeptical about, you know, Dickinson, you know, making that transition to LSU and being a big time guy, because, you know, when F saw him in the fall, like he wasn't that great in the scrimmage that he saw. So to see him leading their team in RBIs, having a couple of homers, he's hitting over 350 for LSU so far. That's pretty impressive. And so seeing him make that transition, seeing how he does this weekend, and then Derek Curiel, I watched a lot of the DBU game last night, and it's impressive to me. We talk about dealing with expectations. You got a guy like Derek Curiel, where coming into the season, we all think he's going to be an immediate superstar. And to handle those expectations as a true freshman and an 18-year-old, number one is is insanely stressful. The other is when you watch him in the box, man, it's a sweet left-handed swing. Like, he does not look like a guy overthinking anything. He looks like a guy who's been at LSU for 4 years, and he's off to a really good start. He leads their team in hitting right now. So Derek Curiel, keep an eye on him this weekend. He's been a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, good player. Been famous for a long time. Before I take us to Vegas, Kendall, Brenton Dufresne, I see you in the chat there asking about Tulane. They're off to a great start. I don't think Tulane's going to be ranked for quite a while, just because, you know, Brenton's question is, would Tulane be ranked with a good weekend? I think the strength of schedule's not been quite there, and they're going to play Pepperdine, who's really struggling, and North Dakota State, who, you know, like it's hard to take too much from that, given where we are in the year. But I would say, most importantly, Tulane's start has been noticed, and they, under Jay Ullman, they really seem to have some momentum there. Expo SS, I see you. AJ Russell is back. So who is going to finish second in Omaha this year? That is hashtag Vols swagger, and I love it. Don't ever change. That is so great. Let me take us to Vegas. So we've got Texas here. They're off to a great start under Jim Schlossnagle, and we all thought the offense would be great, and the offense has been good. I'm not sure if I'm ready to go great yet. I think great's ahead of them. I love the offense, but man, under Max Wiener, they have pitched great, and I don't know why I would be surprised by that, but Jared Spencer has added a changeup, the Indiana State transfer, and Texas is off to a great start. Texas Tech is a really interesting team in this field. They're 1-5. They're hitting .244, which makes no sense. They're fielding .952. I think this is the weekend Texas Tech breaks out. I just think they're too talented to keep playing as poorly as they've played. They've really played poor defense when you talk to people as to why. No, hey, in fairness to Texas Tech, at North Carolina, face that pitching, and then UC Irvine at home. Yeah, no one's played 6 tougher games than they have. Illinois is going to be a really fun story to follow this year. I from a sentimental standpoint, our hearts break for Dan Hartleb, and he loses his pitching coach Mark Allen, who lost a battle with cancer, and then the legend of the program Itchy Jones passed away this year. So heavy hearts for Illinois, but they have a good team. Their rotation has been great. Vitus Valencius has been excellent. That's the older brother of Tomas, who's the talented lefty at Virginia. So Illinois is very good, and then Washington is in a massive rebuild, but man, did they nail the hire. I mean, Eddie Smith was the perfect choice for them, coming from Utah Valley, and he's hired a great staff. Connor Lambert, their pitching coach, is awesome. Anthony Gillich working with their hitters. It's Washington is a stock to buy right now. It's just probably not going to cash in 2025.
Yeah, I'll start with Texas Tech real quick. I think this is a big weekend for them. Starting at 1-5, I think no matter what league you're in, if you start non-conference play, let's say 2-7, you're just putting yourself in a hole. If they go 1-2 this weekend, they don't really have something to kind of hang their hat on from a non-conference resume standpoint. So I think going into the weekend, I'm with you on the offense. Who is going to step up? So coming into the season, they return guys like Damian Bravo, TJ Pompey, obviously 2 really good players. They've gotten off to nice starts, but Dylan Maxey, a veteran, hitting .261. Tracer Lopez, a really talented middle infielder, hitting .217. Kendall Johnson, a freshman outfielder, they were really high on, only hitting .071. So I think the big thing for Tech is higher altitude. Out in Vegas, can they get something going offensively? They actually, in a couple of games against UCI last week, and actually hit the ball okay. So I'm very curious to see how they look. And then Texas, I'm with you. There's nothing surprising that, one of Max's pitching staffs is overachieving early. What he's done with Jared Spencer, he was ultra impressive for me at Globe Life last weekend. Luke Harrison, what he's done so far has been incredibly impressive. And then, the other guy, Ruger Riojas in the bullpen, he's been a rock for them as well. I think the big key for Texas, I guess, looking ahead to the rest of the season is you don't want to have to ride Riojas so much. So what other pieces in that bullpen can step up and get them consistent, solid innings? The one guy I really like for them is Dylan Volantis, a freshman lefty. He reminds me a little bit of Ryan Prager at the same age. The stuff potential is better than Prager, I feel like, but just the mechanics and just the overall look reminds me a lot of him. But, Volantis will get up to 92, 93, 94 this fastball and can throw multiple pitches for strikes. And so, it's kind of funny. I was talking to Max a couple of weeks ago at Globe Life, and he's like, dude, he's really good. And sometimes it's almost like he throws too many strikes. Mm-hmm. And so I think they have the ability, on the mound to at least piece things together. And of course, their offense has been really good. Max Blue's gotten off to a really good start. Will Gasparino hit an opposite field home run that, when I saw him at Globe Life. And then defensively, Jalen Flores has been really good. And then Adrian Rodriguez, the freshman, has been fantastic, both, defensively and offensively. He's just a hitting machine. So keep an eye on Adrian Rodriguez this weekend as well.
Yep. I was the low guy on Texas because I was worried about their pitching, but I was foolish to be worried about their pitching because Max Wiener is a superhero of a pitching coach. And so they are off to a great start.
I did find out an interesting note on Max, by the way. So
What?
apparently he practices calling pitches by playing MLB The Show.
Oh, I love that.
So yeah, so my new investigative work is to find out what his username is, so I can challenge him to a game at some point.
Oh, maybe
Well,
his burner account for MLB The Show is actually Kendall
yeah,
J.
maybe
Rogers.
maybe I'll get Drew Bishop to find out what his username is for me.
Oh,
Find that
please
out for me,
do.
Drew.
Please do. At Globe Life in Arlington, we'll have the College Baseball Series Weekend 3. This is really interesting. Baylor shows up at 7-1. Mitch Thompson's got his best team there. Ohio State almost won the Jacks Classic last weekend. And Auburn will be there. They've got a nice club, of course. And then Oregon State looking to rebound after a 1-2 weekend. So, yeah, go wherever you want there, Kendall. But that's a good one. That's a sneaky, great tournament.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see what Oregon State does this weekend. The Beavers had the strangest 1-2 I've ever seen. Like, I thought they were like an elite team, a national championship contender, and they went 1-2 and didn't play very well in two of the games. So, I mean, they looked awesome in the first game. The one thing I like about Oregon State, and you saw those guys a couple of weeks ago, is I really just like their offensive balance. You look at the top of their lineup with Ivar Arquette, Trent Caraway, Gavin Turley, then the bottom, AJ Singer. I don't know how he was for you opening weekend, but he was a hitting machine in weekend 2 in Round Rock. So I like their balance. Nelson Kelho was really good for me on the front end of the rotation. Dax Whitney, I wouldn't say he ran out of gas. His mechanics kind of fell apart a little bit, but I mean, it was up to 96, 98 very consistently with a lot of vertical break. I think the question for me for Oregon State is I think they're going to hit. I think they can pitch on the front of the rotation. To me, it's like, how does the pitching staff look in the bullpen as the season progresses?
Yep, well said. Yeah, that Oregon State. If you're an Oregon State fan, you're gonna love this team, but it's gonna be a roller coaster ride. 20 home games, playing a hellacious schedule, but they're gonna be there in the end. Commenters, UC Davis is 6-2. I see you, Jack. Tommy Nicholson, hire of the century out there. He's done
how about that?
awesome job.
He's a good
West
one.
Virginia undefeated still, if I'm not mistaken, and then Canes Cats Heat 305. I see you right there. So. It should be interesting. Let's go. The Dodgertown Classic is the other tournament I wanted to talk about, Kendall. This one used to be a very famous tournament that, I don't want to say it lost its luster, but it was a tournament in flux is probably the best way to say it. But this weekend, man, you've got Vandy, UConn, USC, and UCLA. UConn is, we know how good they are, but Vandy, USC, and UCLA all look like they have really good clubs this year. I think there's a lot to be learned from that tournament this weekend.
No, there really is. I think the team that I've got my eye on this weekend is UCLA. Kind of a weird resume. I mean, they lost the one game to A&M Corpus, but I mean, overall they've been really good for the most part. Outside of the shutout loss to Arizona State. Arizona State obviously is a pretty good team too right now. But keep an eye on Rock Chalowski this weekend. I'll give Chalowski a ton of credit. In the era where it feels like a lot of kids are flocking to the SEC right now, Chalowski stayed committed to UCLA. He was like, I'm not going to follow the same path as Gage and guys like that. Not to say whatever they did is wrong, but he's a guy that decided, hey, I want to help build UCLA back to what it used to be. And he's been off to an awesome start. 387, 3 homers, 14 RBIs, 11 walks already this season, and an OBP well over 500. So Rod Chalowski is a guy to watch. I mean, he is a physical presence in that lineup. He had an absolute tank. I think it was in the Sunday series finale over the weekend.
Yep. And, Vandy's got a much improved offense.
Yeah.
Cody Bowker, the transfer from Georgetown, has been awesome. Like that. Talking to a scout this week, he said, man, that's a real fastball. And, USC, Andy Stankiewicz and that staff continue to do an awesome job. I think the thing we forget about, or, it's easy to forget this about USC. They lost their facility last year. They're still trying to get back on a field. They started the year 4-12, and people like me just kind of stop looking at them, and then you wake up and they won 17 games in the Pac-12 and played in the Pac-12 tournament championship game. I mean, they were a win away from the NCAA tournament. Now all of that scar tissue is for the positive, and USC's got a real club.
Yeah, when I did see Runes, they actually practiced on their new field for the first time yesterday. So,
which is awesome.
that's a positive development. I mean, anytime you can get in kind of a groove and a little bit of comfortability, that's a good thing. So maybe that'll kind of help them as the season progresses.
Yeah, and I think every program fancies themselves a development program, and when you just, last year, not to make excuses for USC, but they had to drive an hour just to hit in the cage. So, like, what are you supposed to do to get better at your game? But anyway, it's that will be the Dodgertown Classic will be fun this weekend. Let's do rivalries, KR. So, get your spicy salsa meat. Get your spicy tamales are spicy, right? Can be.
Only if you had the green sauce that we had at my Christmas party 2 years ago.
Okay, that was fantastic.
You had some of that, didn't you?
Yes, I did. I was asked.
Yeah, I was sweating.
I tried a tamale. So the Rogers Christmas party green sauce, Miami, Florida, South Carolina, Clemson, Central Florida at South Florida. The war on I-4, I think it's called. So Miami, Florida, South Carolina, Clemson, Central Florida, South Florida. What's the spiciest of those green sauces?
I'm going to go with South Carolina, Clemson, because, Paul Maneri and his program are getting off to a really nice start. They haven't played the best schedule, but I mean, hey, there are teams out there who are not playing well against weaker schedules. So I've been really impressed with the job that the Gamecocks have done right out of the chute. And having seen Clemson, we're going to find out what they're made of on the mound, because when you look at Clemson's lineup, with Cam Cannarella, leading the way there, that's a impactful, hard-hitting, powerful lineup. And so we'll find out, what South Carolina is kind of made of this weekend for sure.
Yeah, I think that's I still think Clemson's the better team, but Clemson play they're like, in fairness to Paul Maneri, Eric Bakich is just further along in getting that program going. But of course, who's on the South Carolina staff? Monty Lee, who was there before Eric Bakich. It's like, it's not that those fan bases needed any extra reasons, right? Like, this was already an 11 out of 10. I'm just excited about
it. Hey, I will say this, Runes. I don't know if you've actually been in any of those games.
Never.
But it's a fun
awesome
rivalry. And I love, whether it's Mississippi State, Ole Miss, A&M, Texas, etc. I would love to see this happen more often, where you play one game at the other, another game at the other, and then play like a neutral site. I think it's just really cool. Going to 3 different venues for a series, it just makes it feel big time. You go to, I was trying to remember where the middle game was this year, but the year that I went, it was at Floor Field in Greenville, and you walked up to the stadium and there was bands playing outside. It was like a carnival. It was a really neat spectacle. What, the third week of the college baseball season.
I love it. I'm looking for our staff picks, Kendall, but I don't think it's been posted yet. So I was going to ask you about a couple of those. So let's do. There's one other big series, and then I'll give you some ancillary ones, and then we'll wrap up. So Southern Miss is going to TCU.
Ooh, yeah.
That's a good one. What do you remember who you picked in that one, Kendall?
I picked the Frogs at home.
Southern Miss.
If you look at what they did over the weekend at Globe Life, they weren't bad. And I just think at home, I think they'll pitch well. The weather will be favorable for a little bit of an offensive explosion for them. But Southern Miss's pitching will be really interesting this weekend as well. JB Middleton, we were talking about him earlier in the week in our pod. He's always had the electric stuff. He's taken the step forward from just a sheer consistency standpoint. Colby Allen, Cross Sibley. That's a really good pitching staff that Oz has over there at USM. So, that's a very much a toss-up series for me. I just go with TCU as the home team.
Yeah, that's fair. Let me see. Let me see if I can't. You can't see the staff picks. No worries.
You picked everybody to win. Let everybody win.
Participation trophies. All right, so let me we'll wrap with this. So we've got Xavier at Stanford is interesting. Stanford is off to a great start, but the schedule's just starting to wrap up. Louisiana, the Raging Cajuns are going to Irvine, UC Irvine. That's a great series. Northeastern's going to play at Hawaii. That will be fun. Grand Canyon at Texas State is very interesting. Now, Illinois did take the series from Texas State last weekend, but Texas State then beat A&M in the midweek. Dartmouth at UVA. I put that on there because UVA is not swinging it good, and Dartmouth, their pitching staff gave Texas a real headache over the weekend. Florida Gulf Coast at Georgia. Florida Gulf Coast, a great program. They're always, I think there's a chance they can always give any good team a hard time. Pitt at UNCG, 2 programs off to a good start. Georgetown against Florida State. I just think Edwin Thompson does a great job at Georgetown, but Florida State's been mauling everyone.
They have, one guy at Florida State that has my attention right now is Gage Harrelson. Remember him at Texas Tech? We were just like waiting for him to break out. It appears that Link Jarrett is at Elixir to help him break out.
Yes, well said. All right, Kendall, let's wrap with this. I'm going to go to the Patriot League on the schedule page.
Uh-oh.
And I have demanded that everyone on our staff, I need to know your Patriot League affiliation. Now, I am associated with the Lafayette Leopards, even though, I love Chuck Ristano at Navy. I love the Patriot League, period. I love Sean Leary at Lehigh, but I'm roll damn pards this year. I'm all in. Kendall, you said, because you're a Texan, that you're going to be with one of the armed forces. So
I've got to be. It's got to be right on brand. I'll go with Army.
Yeah, you got to be Army as an East Texan. So Army's going to play Air Force this weekend. So that'll be interesting. Navy's got Sacred Heart. So rest of the D1 baseball staff, I'm coming for you. We know that Fitzy is going to be with Holy Cross. Go Satyrs. I think Bradley Smart will do the same thing because he's a New Englander and he's, now that he lives in Philadelphia, he's trying to save face with Fitzy. Yeah, Navy's playing at Air Force for 3 games. Oh boy.
Yeah, Navy took a C-130 over there this weekend. They posted pictures of it.
Oh, how cool is that?
Yeah, that's awesome.
That is really cool. So anyway, that'll be fun. Swanky, I see you. Yeah, Canes Cats hat 305. Princeton at Wake. Princeton's got good arms. And then Swanky, how big of a concern is Oregon State's performance last weekend? Not at all. Their schedule is ferocious. They're going to have trip up. There's missteps. I just think for Oregon State, they've got to figure out the bullpen. Once they get the bullpen figured out, Dallas Macias and Gavin Turley aren't going to struggle all year. Those are good players. Oregon State's got a bunch of good players. They stay healthy, they're going to be in it in the end.
Yeah, I mean, they look like a national champion on Friday. So I tend to think those last 2 games are aberrations, but we'll find out what happens this weekend at Globe Life.
Yes, very good. Kendall, so you got 9 games this weekend. May the force be with you. That is not for the faint of heart.
It's one of those things, people always say stuff to me about, bringing broccoli in the press box in Omaha. This year, I'm going to take some like K-Cups because Astros have like a Keurig machine in there.
Oh,
so I'm going to take like a box of K-Cups with me.
That's smart. You're going to need to stay caffeinated. 3. The only thing that's good is that Dakin Field or Dakin Park. Dakin Park, is that what we're calling it?
Dakin Park. I've never even heard of the company. It's like a Japanese air conditioning company, I want to say.
Yeah, that sounds right. I have no idea. Yeah, I think that is exactly who they are.
Yeah, I will say I'm looking forward to following the streaming on D1Baseball this weekend.
Yes.
We've got the Frisco Classic with LSU, Kansas State, Nebraska, and Sam Houston. And, of course, Vegas. You get to hear Runes and Coach Farron, or Coach Rooney and Coach Farron out in Vegas do play-by-play in color. So, that'll be a lot of fun, too, with Texas, Illinois, Texas Tech, and Washington.
Yes, so good, so good. These early season weekends and tournaments are so fun. Yes, catch us on the streaming. Coach Farron, as you talk about a man with golden pipes, Michael J. Farron is the best. So
it's a very unique voice. Gotta love
that's
him.
Right. He's the best, and nobody loves college baseball more than Coach Farron. We are looking forward to it. That's it. Hey, everybody, safe travels this weekend. A lot of great games to catch. Have a great weekend, and that is it. We will catch you next time on the D1 Baseball Podcast.